The sky over Ridgewood, Ohio, was dark with smoke. The two-story suburban house on Maplewood Drive was in flames, bright orange against the early morning sky. Firefighters rushed to control the fire while neighbors stood outside in their robes, whispering in shock. Detective Ethan Caldwell pulled up in his black Ford Taurus, his gut tightening. House fires were usually tragic accidents, but something about this one felt wrong. He stepped out and approached the fire chief. "What do we have?" Caldwell asked. The fire chief, a grizzled man named Harris, wiped sweat from his face. "House fire, fully engulfed when we arrived. We just found 3 children's bodies inside, burned beyond recognition." Caldwell's stomach dropped. "What about the parents?" Harris exhaled. "The wife, Rebecca Calloway, was found in the bedroom, stabbed, many, many times." Caldwell's jaw clenched. "And the husband?" Harris shook his head. "Nowhere to be found." By 7 a.m., the fire was under control. The house was a blackened skeleton, the air thick with the acrid smell of burned wood, and something worse, burned flesh. Crime scene techs moved in, carefully sifting through the remains. Caldwell walked into what was left of the master bedroom. The mattress was soaked in blood, and the body of Rebecca Calloway lay twisted on the floor. He crouched beside her. Even with the burns on her arms and legs, the stab wounds were visible. 1, 2, 3, 50 stab wounds. This wasn't just a murder. This was rage. He stood up, scanning the room. No sign of forced entry. No broken windows. That meant someone had locked the house after the fire started. "Detective," a forensic tech called out. "The kids were in their bedroom closet when they died. Someone put them there before the fire was set." Caldwell rubbed his temples. Who could do this to their own family? And more importantly, where was Henry Calloway? Henry Calloway was a respected accountant. Married for 12 years, 3 kids, a beautiful home. To outsiders, his life seemed perfect. So why was he missing after his family was slaughtered? Caldwell walked back outside and spotted Lisa Garner, Rebecca's best friend. She was pacing, her eyes red from crying. Caldwell approached her. "Lisa, do you know where Henry might be?" Lisa hesitated. I I don't know, but," she swallowed. "Rebecca called me last night. She sounded upset." "What did she say?" Lisa wiped her tears. "She said she found something. Something about Henry." Caldwell frowned. "Did she say what it was?" Lisa shook her head. "Number, she just said, 'I know his secret now.'" And then she hung up. Caldwell's gut twisted. A secret? Was that why she was murdered? And if so, what was Henry Calloway hiding? Caldwell turned back toward the house. The scene was brutal, the victims helpless. Henry Calloway wasn't missing. He was running, and Caldwell was going to find him. Detective Ethan Caldwell sat at his desk in the Ridgewood Police Department, staring at the crime scene photos. Rebecca Calloway had been stabbed 50 times, a number that spoke of deep rage. Her 3 children had been locked in a closet and burned alive, and her husband, Henry Calloway, was nowhere to be found. Caldwell's instincts told him one thing: Henry was guilty. But Lisa Garner's words from earlier stuck with him. She said, "I know his secret now," and then she hung up. What secret had Rebecca discovered, and had it cost her life? Caldwell's partner, Detective Sarah Lawson, walked in, holding a file. "We put out a BOLO on Henry Calloway. No sightings yet. His phone is off and his credit cards haven't been used since yesterday." "He's running," Caldwell muttered. "And he planned this. He knew exactly what he was doing." Lawson sighed. "The way the fire was set, the way the kids were locked inside, it's pure malice." Caldwell nodded. "We need to find out what Rebecca knew. If she discovered something about Henry, maybe it pushed him over the edge." Lawson sat down. "I checked her phone records. She made a call yesterday, right before she called Lisa." "To who?" Lawson slid a printed phone log across the table. Caldwell's eyes narrowed. She had called a man named Jacob Myers. "Who's Jacob Myers?" Caldwell asked. Lawson had already done a background check. "He's a real estate agent, works in Cincinnati. No criminal record, but..." She hesitated. "But what?" "He was calling Henry Calloway frequently in the last few months, at odd hours, sometimes late at night." Caldwell's brow furrowed. Why would Henry be talking to a real estate agent at night? Lawson shrugged. "Only one way to find. Out. By the afternoon, Caldwell and Lawson were sitting in Jacob Meyer's office. The man looked nervous, adjusting his tie too often. "We're investigating the murder of Rebecca Calloway and her children," Caldwell said. "She called you yesterday." "Why?" Jacob swallowed. I don't know." Caldwell leaned forward. "Wrong answer. Try again." Jacob sighed, rubbing his forehead. "She told me she found out about me, about Henry and me." Lawson blinked. "What do you mean?" Jacob's face was red now. "We were involved. Henry and I were lovers." Caldwell and Lawson exchanged looks. Jacob kept talking. "Henry wasn't happy in his marriage. We'd been seeing each other for over a year. But he was too afraid to come out. He said it would ruin everything. His career, his family." Caldwell's mind worked fast. "And Rebecca found out." Jacob nodded. "I don't know how, but she did. She called me, angry, demanding to know everything. I begged her not to tell Henry, but she wouldn't listen." Lawson exhaled. "So she confronted Henry." Jacob's hands trembled. I never thought he'd do something like this." Caldwell stood. "Where is Henry now?" Jacob shook his head. "I swear, I don't know. I haven't talked to him since yesterday." But Caldwell wasn't convinced. Jacob knew more than he was saying, and Henry Calloway was still out there, hiding, waiting, and maybe ready to kill again. Detective Ethan Caldwell stood outside Jacob Meyer's office, watching the man nervously wring his hands. The confession had cracked the case wide open. Henry Calloway had a secret lover. Rebecca had found out, and hours later she was stabbed 50 times, and her children were burned alive. Coincidence? Not a chance. Caldwell leaned in. "Jacob, let's cut the act. I know Henry contacted you. He's on the run, and I think you know where he is." Jacob's face drained of color. "I swear, I don't know where he is." Caldwell studied him. Lies. Before he could push further, his phone rang. It was Detective Sarah Lawson. "We got something," she said. "Security footage from a gas station 20 miles outside town." Caldwell's pulse quickened. "Henry?" "Yeah, he was seen filling up a black SUV at 2:15 a.m., just hours after the fire started." Caldwell's grip tightened on the phone. "Where was he headed?" "South," Lawson said. "And guess who he called right before leaving?" Caldwell's eyes snapped back to Jacob. Jacob Myers. Back inside the station, Jacob sat across from Caldwell, and Lawson in the interrogation room. The walls were bare, the air tense. Lawson folded her arms. "You want to be charged as an accomplice? Because that's what's happening if you don't start talking." Jacob swallowed hard. Henry called me, okay? He was panicking. He said things got out of hand with Rebecca." "Out of hand?" Caldwell repeated. "He stabbed her 50 times. He burned his own children alive." Jacob flinched. His hands trembled. "He didn't mention the kids. I swear. He just kept saying he messed up and needed to disappear." Caldwell narrowed his eyes. "Did you help him?" Jacob hesitated. Too long. Then he exhaled, defeated. "I told him about a motel in Kentucky, just across the state line. That's where he said he was heading." Lawson turned to Caldwell. "We need to move." Now Caldwell stood. "Jacob, you better pray we find Henry before he kills again." Jacob looked down, guilt written all over his face. But guilt wouldn't bring back Rebecca and her children. By midnight, Caldwell and Lawson were pulling into a rundown motel just outside Lexington, Kentucky. The neon sign flickered. Caldwell's instincts screamed, "He's here!" The clerk barely looked up when they flashed their badges. "Room 214, he muttered. Caldwell and Lawson moved fast. Guns drawn, footsteps silent. "Room 214. Caldwell knocked. "Henry Calloway, open up." Silence. Then, a noise inside. Lawson moved to the side. Caldwell reached for the handle and kicked the door open. Inside, the room was empty, but the window was open, and Henry Calloway was gone. Detective Ethan Caldwell stood in the dimly lit motel room, his jaw clenched in frustration. The stale air reeked of cheap cigarettes and sweat. Henry Calloway had been here. The open window told them he had escaped. Again. Lawson cursed under her breath. "We were minutes too late." Caldwell's eyes swept the room. A half-empty duffel bag lay on the bed, stuffed with clothes and cash. A disposable phone sat on the nightstand, blinking with a missed call. Caldwell picked it up and pressed redial. The call rang twice before a voice answered. "Henry!" Caldwell's heart pounded. The voice was Jacob Myers. "Jacob," Caldwell said coldly. "Guess who's not in his motel room?" There was silence on the other end. Then, a sharp inhale. I I don't know where he is. Don't lie to me," Caldwell snapped. "You told him we were coming, didn't you? I swear I didn't." Jacob's voice was shaking. "I haven't talked to him since I told you about the motel." Caldwell wasn't convinced. Someone tipped Henry off. He hung up and turned to Lawson. "We need to track his next move. He's getting desperate." Lawson scanned the motel room. "If Henry's smart, he's ditching his cards and using cash." Caldwell nodded. "But people on the run still need food, gas, and shelter. Let's check for local cash withdrawals." An hour later, their search paid off. Lawson pointed to the screen. He withdrew $500 from an ATM at a gas station 20 miles south, just 10 minutes ago. Caldwell's pulse quickened. "That means he's still in the area." Lawson grabbed her keys. "Let's move." The gas station was a lonely stop on a stretch of highway. Only a few cars sat in the lot. Caldwell's eyes swept over them, looking for Henry. Then he saw him, a man in a dark hoodie, head down, standing by a gray sedan. Henry Calloway. Caldwell's blood ran hot. They had him. "Henry Calloway!" Caldwell shouted, drawing his gun. "Hands where I can see them." Henry froze. Then he ran. Caldwell and Lawson sprinted after him. Henry bolted toward the back of the gas station, his shoes slamming against the pavement. Caldwell was faster. He tackled Henry to the ground, hard. Henry groaned, struggling, but Caldwell twisted his arm behind his back and snapped the cuffs on. "Got you, you son of a bitch," Caldwell growled. Henry's face was pressed against the pavement, breathing hard. Then he whispered something that made Caldwell's blood go cold. "I had no choice." Caldwell's grip tightened. "You killed your wife and burned your children alive. What the hell kind of choice is that?" Henry smiled, a sick, twisted grin. "She left me no choice." Caldwell's stomach churned. This man wasn't just a coward. He was a monster. And now he was going to pay. Detective Ethan Caldwell and Sarah Lawson sat across from Henry Calloway in the dimly lit interrogation room. The air was thick with tension. Henry sat with his hands cuffed to the metal table, his face blank. He looked exhausted, but there was something else in his eyes. Defiance. Caldwell leaned forward. "You ran. You hid. But now it's over. We know what you did." Henry exhaled, tapping his fingers against the table. "You don't know a damn thing." Lawson dropped a crime scene photo in front of him. Rebecca's lifeless body, her torso covered in 50 stab wounds. Henry flinched. Then she laid down a second photo, the burned remains of his 3 children. Caldwell's voice was cold. "Look at what you did." Henry's hands trembled, but his lips pressed into a thin line. Then he whispered, "She shouldn't have pushed me." Caldwell's eyes narrowed. "You mean your wife? What did she do that justified butchering her?" Henry leaned back, staring at the ceiling. "She found out about me. About Jacob. She cornered me in our bedroom, threw my phone at me, screaming that I was a disgusting liar. She said she was going to take the kids and expose me." His voice turned cold. "She gave me no choice." Lawson scoffed. "So your response was to stab her 50 times? Henry's jaw tightened. "I didn't mean to. I just snapped. She wouldn't stop yelling, wouldn't stop saying I was a failure, that I was a shame to my family. I grabbed the knife, then everything went red." Caldwell shook his head. "And your kids? What was their crime?" Henry's face darkened. "She was going to turn them against me." His voice was eerily calm. "I knew the moment she told me she was leaving, I'd never see them again. I couldn't let that happen." Lawson's expression twisted in disgust. "So you locked them in a closet and set the house on fire?" Henry smirked. "They were already dead when the fire started." Silence. Caldwell clenched his fists. "You murdered your own children." Henry exhaled, finally looking Caldwell in the eye. I did what I had to do. Caldwell stood, his voice laced with rage. No, Henry. You did what a coward does. Lawson shook her head. Enjoy prison, Henry, because that's the only place you're going for the rest of your life. Henry just smiled, and Caldwell had never wanted to punch someone more. Detective Ethan Caldwell watched through the interrogation room's one-way mirror as Henry Calloway sat in silence, still handcuffed to the table. The monster had confessed, without a shred of remorse. Lawson stood beside him. I want him locked away for life. Caldwell nodded. We still need to make sure there's no way he can worm out of this. Back at his desk, Caldwell flipped through crime scene photos, autopsy reports, and financial records. Every detail of Henry's murderous rampage was there. Rebecca's body, showing 50 stab wounds, most concentrated around her chest and neck. A crime of rage. The house fire, which investigators ruled intentional, with gasoline poured at key points. The locked closet where the 3 children's bodies were found. No chance of escape. Then there was Jacob Myers, Henry's secret lover. His name had been all over Henry's phone records, and he had helped Henry hide. Caldwell called him back in for one last interrogation. Jacob sat across from Caldwell, visibly shaking. I already told you, I didn't know what Henry was planning. Caldwell slid a transcript of Henry's confession across the table. He says you knew, that you helped him run. Jacob swallowed hard. I didn't. Caldwell cut him off. You lied before, Jacob. Don't do it again. Jacob's shoulders slumped. I swear I never thought he'd hurt his kids. I knew about Rebecca, but the children? He shook his head. That wasn't supposed to happen. Lawson leaned in. So you did help him after he murdered his wife? Jacob hesitated. Then he nodded. Yes. He called me, said he had made a mistake and needed to disappear. I told him about the motel. Caldwell folded his arms. That makes you an accessory after the fact. Jacob's eyes widened. No, please, I'll testify against him. I'll tell the jury everything. Just don't let me go down for this. Caldwell exchanged a glance with Lawson. They had all they needed. That evening, Caldwell and Lawson met with District Attorney Marcus Reed to go over the case. The evidence is rock solid, Reed said, scanning the files. The confession, the forensic reports, Jacob's testimony, it all points to first-degree murder. Caldwell nodded. Henry didn't just kill his wife in the heat of the moment. He planned it, then killed his kids to cover his tracks. That's as premeditated as it gets. Reed smirked. Then let's make sure the jury sees it that way. The next step was clear. Trial preparations would begin. And Henry Calloway? He would never see the outside of a prison cell again? The courtroom was packed. The air was thick with tension as Henry Calloway sat at the defense table, wearing an orange jumpsuit, his expression blank. The jury had spent only 4 hours deliberating. Now the judge was back. Detective Ethan Caldwell and Sarah Lawson sat in the front row waiting. They had spent weeks building this case, collecting every detail to ensure Henry never walked free. The jury filed in. The foreman, a middle-aged man in a gray suit, cleared his throat. We, the jury, find the defendant, Henry Calloway, guilty of first-degree murder. A ripple of gas filled the courtroom. Rebecca's family wept in relief. Caldwell's fists clenched. The monster was finally going away. The judge's voice rang out. Henry Calloway, for the murder of Rebecca Calloway and your 3 children, this court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Henry didn't flinch. He simply stared forward, emotionless, as the bailiffs led him away. Jacob Myers, his secret lover and accomplice, had taken a plea deal in exchange for his testimony. He would serve 10 years for aiding a fugitive. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Caldwell and Lawson pushed through, their job finally done. Lawson sighed. You think he ever felt guilt? Caldwell shook his head. Henry Calloway only cared about himself. Lawson crossed her arms. Well, he'll have plenty of time to think about it behind bars. Caldwell nodded. Justice was served, and with that, they walked away, ready for the next case.